Welcome back to Tallboy Radio. Today we're going to talk about 80s films. So before we start, let's introduce the guys as usual. So who's going first then?
Go on, Ad.
I was going to say, I was pointing at you there, Gazza.
Oh, go on then. Off for you.
All right. Cheers, dude. Yeah. Thanks for the intro there, Andy. And thank you for joining us again this week, everybody who's listening. My beer of choice, as I said to Andy when I cracked it open earlier, if this beer tastes anywhere near as good as it smells, it's going to be an absolute cracker. And I'm telling you, it tastes absolutely fabulous. I don't know if you can see that on the can. It's quite difficult to read. It's a London Beer Factory Zia, and it is a tiramisu pastry stout, 9.2%. And I tell you what, it is just like drinking a really sweet tiramisu out of a beer glass. It's next level.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you like tiramisu.
Yeah, if you don't like tiramisu or dark beer, probably don't bother. I happen to like both those things.
Yeah, and I'm hi guys. I'm drinking a good old fashioned Hoygarden, and in case that goes, I do have earning it as a backup. Just in case the Hoygarden goes. Looking forward to this. Thanks to everybody that has been tuning in over the last couple of weeks. We seem to have done relatively well in the Polish charts again. So to all our Polish listeners, thank you very much. And I'm going to leave Adam to make the announcement about a specific number and a specific place, because I think that might be a bit of a shout out that we need.
Yeah, definitely. So, like Gaz says, they're number 46 in the Polish chart still. Number 145, Peter 112, I think it was, in the UK chart. So, yeah, we've done really well on the back of these last couple of episodes. But we've added country number 30, and that's Denmark. So, thank you to the people of Denmark. Thanks for getting involved. We've also added country number 31, Bangladesh. So we're flying through, and we were just talking, weren't we? We said that when we got to 30 countries that we were going to do some kind of a giveaway. So we were just spitballing ideas before we started. Did we want to go with your idea, Gaz? I quite like that idea.
Yeah, it was just a case of, okay, so we're on country number 31 now. So I was thinking, why don't we put a bit of a time frame on it? Say, okay, so by the end of the summer period, so maybe by the end of the school summer holidays, maybe you look at the end of July and say, right, how many countries do you think we would be listened in? And obviously, get in touch with us. Let us know how many you think that might be. Bearing in mind we're on 31 at the moment, and the person that gets it right on the last day of July, whatever it is, July the 30th or whatever, gets a prize. Don't know. What do you think?
I like that idea. So I guess then, in the meantime, in the interim, we're not going to share we share it out on Twitter when a new country starts, and we won't do that. What we'll do is end of July.
Hopefully a big long list, more than 31.
Big fat zero or a big fat list. I don't know which.
Yeah. No, I think so. You know, we, as I say, we thank our listeners. We thank our new listeners or whatever. Now that might not necessarily be new countries, or whatever. But I just think, you know what? Why don't we go with that, and let's hope that we hit, I don't know, 40 or 50 or 100 or whatever it may be, and then the listener, the reader, that gets in touch with us the most, or that is the most accurate, gets a prize. Maybe get a TBR goodie bag wheeled their way over to you.
We can do that,
and we'll just go with that. Yeah. So I think that's a decent shout.
Nice one.
Cool. For anyone who's interested, I'm on the old JD.
Right. Good man.
But there's not much left, so we'll see if it lasts this hour. One little shout out I would like to say is I'm looking forward to the Double Trouble Beer Club. All their other drinks have been really good. They've turned me into a rum lover, so I'm sure they'll do a decent beer.
Yep.
I can't see it going wrong. I'm still waiting for this whiskey as well, though.
Before Easter, I think they said with that one, dude. Before Easter.
Yeah.
So if you hold a little bit of that back, you can have yourself a little bit of Double Trouble whiskey and a Double Trouble beer.
Yes.
A double trouble Boilermaker.
Oh, well, there you go. You see, if you like whiskey, then happy days.
Yeah, I like whiskey, but I don't like putting it in beer.
No, there must be a certain breed that like that, certain person that likes doing that. Like, basically,
All I
alcoholics.
can say is I've never had Corona, so can't be a coincidence.
must be doing something then. Brilliant.
Do you guys want to say anything else before we start, or are we just jumping into it?
Let's go for it, dude.
Yeah, just jump straight in, mate. Yeah.
Cool. So, obviously, talking about 80s films, I personally found this quite hard because there's probably about 1 billion films I wanted to add to this list. I don't know how you guys found it as well, but
Yeah.
I think for me, a lot of growing up for me was like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, Clint Eastwood. You know, obviously they spread multiple decades, but yeah. So this list is primarily going to be them.
Yeah.
But I did sneak in a few family films. There's one film on this list. Did I put it back in there? No, I'll leave that for later on. But yeah, and I got a few comedy films as well, but it's probably more action films, just because that was probably what I watched a lot growing up. So how do you want to start this then? Should we mention a film, mention an actor? How you guys want?
You whichever way you want to do, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I like you, Andy. I struggled with effectively sort of keeping films off the list because there were loads. Like, and I've got a list of, I don't know, 10 to a dozen films here that were like brilliant and I really enjoyed. But I could have easily gone to 30 films easily. You know, one of the ones that I want to mention first really was it's released in '86. It's a film called Stand By Me, which was. It's like I suppose a coming of age film, and I don't know whether you've ever seen it. Sort of River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Will Wheaton with sort of the guys. It's about a group.
Who was that? Sorry.
So you got River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and then Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton wet his whistle.
I'm sure he did. Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland was in it towards you only really saw him towards the end. He was. There was a group of guys, and they basically had heard this sort of wives' tale about there was a body, and they were going to go into the woods and try and find it and stuff. And basically, it was more of a coming of age film, but it was brilliant. So I remember watching that first time and enjoying it, and then watched it sort of again and again and again. So yeah, that was the first one for me. Not necessarily number one of the 80s, but just one that I sort of just came across first and thought, oh, that'll go on the list, sort of thing. So yeah,
it's
brilliant
a good film as well. Like a lot of them actors that you listed are now massive stars now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's obviously come from the film and stuff.
Yeah, well, I think it maybe not Kiefer Sutherland because he's possibly a bit older, but I think a couple of other guys effectively it sort of kick-started their career. That might have been one of the first films. Maybe they were, you know, I say younger child actors in sort of cartoony sort of Disney type things, but I'm pretty sure that launched the career of certainly a couple of the actors in it. I just remember enjoying the film. It's a great storyline and sort of half decent soundtrack.
Is it a John Carpenter one? That one?
You know what? I don't know. I could lie and say yes, but actually, but I genuinely I don't know. I mean, if somebody could Google it, if you got a minute, but
it's just with you saying I'm familiar with the film. And actually, to be fair, it's not on my list, but it is a really good film. And like you say, with it being a coming of age film, John Carpenter did a lot of those sort of type of movies, didn't he, in the 1980s? That you could, you know, the likes with Molly Ringwald and Emilio Estevez and a couple of others in those different other films. So yeah, and Will Wheaton, obviously, who Andy picked up upon, famous, you know, for Star Trek Next Gen. He was in that as well, wasn't he?
He was. I was trying to think that. I was thinking, what did he go in? I recognise him, and then I thought, Picard. I remember that. But yeah, that was the first one for me. I was just saying, not necessarily my favourite 80s film, but just one that sort of gets on the list. Yeah, definitely that one.
The director was Rob Reiner, who did
Rob Reiner,
When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, okay.
Princess Bride.
Okay.
Okay, so this
is Spinal Tap.
This is Spinal Tap. Now that did make my list. I'll be honest with you. I love that film.
Is that on your list? Is it?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh wow. Okay. 100%. It wasn't on mine, but okay.
It's genius. It's genius. There's a clip in that, like when the old joke about like bands, because it's sort of set in the 70s and early 80s about rock bands, and obviously people overdoing it on the old sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And there's a joke that literally these sort of bands going through loads of drummers, and there's literally loads of different drummers that they talk about in that film of how they moved on. And there's one bit like where there's a guy and he choked on his, and he ended up choking on vomit. The trouble was, it wasn't his own.
Oh no! No, no. It doesn't bear thinking about, does it? Awful. So that was is that your number 180s then, Ad, or is that just on the list?
No. I said we'll save our favourite film of the 80s, probably maybe for the last one. I'd still, to be honest with you, I'd struggle on again what is a pretty long list of films. I'd add it down.
I
pick a favourite.
Yeah, I don't think I could pick a top one favourite film of the 80s. The list is, there's so many iconic. I just couldn't say what famous. You know, my not the most famous, but my personal favourite. Couldn't tell you what it was. There's just so many.
Well, yeah. I wonder with Andy if he'll sneak in with something special like he did last week with The Simpsons, which like debuted like 2 weeks before the 1980s ended.
Yeah.
I was going to mention my next one, one-on-ones, but I'll leave that towards the end because it's one of my, I don't know if it's one of my all-time favourites, but it's one stands out anyway. I'll save that one.
Yeah.
Keep it in the pocket.
What is it then about the 1980s that's got us intrigued? You know, because we did TV shows. TV shows were great in the 1980s. Films were great in the 1980s. It's true. You know, like literally, if you said 80s films, a lot of these, wow, yeah, I can't even believe that was 1980s. There's a lot of Google that I thought actually turned out wasn't a 1980s film. But that's by the by. And next week we said we're going to talk about music, and then there's some great 80s music. None of the stuff that's on the soundtrack of Top Gun, but that's by the by. But but what is it about the 1980s? Is it? Do you think it's tied in with our youth?
I think there has to be an element of, you know, in 1980, obviously had myself and yourself, we were 7, so you know the 80s was from 7 to 17. That's your growing up years, isn't it? That's the years that you remember. I know you have memories before that and stuff going back, but you know when you're 7, you can remember going to school, playing with your mates, doing that. You can remember films, you can remember music, and you can remember what that meant to you. So I think it has to tie in with growing up. I think if you speak to the kids of today, they'll go, "Oh my god, that music's rubbish," or "Oh my god, that film's crap," sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I would think the same maybe of today's music or today's films. You know, I think there's a massive element in terms of being influenced as a kid growing up in that era. And I think when you are young, some of the films that influenced you were maybe the films that your mum and dad used to watch, and you maybe saw them as a kid and you just remember watching them because your mum and dad watched them over and over and over again. You know, it didn't make my list, but Dirty Dancing was a 1980s film. My mum loved that film, and I must have seen that film, and I'm not even joking, 20 times. But and I like it, but I think I like it because it reminds me of my mum, if you know what I mean, rather than getting onto my list, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I think it has to be due to growing up, because that's when you make your memories, isn't it? I think Andy mentioned that previously. You know, that's the era you come into your own. You start to get your own likes and dislikes and favourites and fads and all that sort of stuff. So maybe I think it has to be tied to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it must be tied to when you start finding your own sort of feet. You know, as the late or mid to late teenager, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know, dude. I'm 47. I'm not sure. I technically found my own feet.
It's just finding that
both left.
It's just finding that little sort of, you know, that niche, isn't it? And particularly music. You know, at the time, are you going to go down the indie route? Are you going to go down the sort of the club classic sort of dance route? You know, is it pop music as such? You know, so I think it's just finding your feet, finding your niche, finding what you like and you don't like, and then being influenced by that, and then they sort of lead you on to, well, I liked that, so I like this, and I think it just creates a path for you. So I think it has to be sort of in a way generational, and you just from what you were as a kid. I think it has to be that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that probably sums up my list of films. Really, I think because a lot of these my dad would have watched, say.
Yeah.
And then so I'd probably like them more because of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then there's some on the list, like Blade Runner, for example. I love it even more now than I did like when I was younger. So I think Blade Runner in the 80s. So.
Do you know what? That's a film. I know guys like that film as well.
Yes.
I've never got it. I've never seen the fuss
Really?
about it. Do you know, I'm okay with sort of science fiction films and stuff like that. I'm not a huge science fiction fan, but that is one of those films that I can watch it, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a terrible film and start offending people, but it never really struck a chord with me, and I don't know why. And I know I'm in the minority there. I know I'm in the minority that it's just me being a fussy bugger, but yeah, it's just never really resonated with me. And truthfully, I don't know why, because I quite like Harrison Ford.
For me, it's the old it's like sci-fi sort of, cyberpunk sort of setting. It's all modern and I don't know, all the bright neon lights and everything like that. But I read the book. Was it Do Electric Sheep Dream or something like that?
Dude, you mentioned this book before and you got it wrong last time.
I know. I've got a bad memory. It's a good book, though.
Do androids dream of electric sheep?
There you go. That's how good the book was.
That's it, yeah. Nice. Good book, not so memorable. To be fair, it's a pretty lousy title.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird when you read the book, then you watch the film. The film's quite different as well. It sort of brings the characters into it more. Like the book's more about some guy like having, like a not electric, but like an android animal. Whereas the film's about, Deckard, who's a detective and he's got to trace replicants. Then the whole thing about that story is like, is he or isn't he a replicant as well? And there's all sorts of little twists in it. And that the newer one as well leads on from it, and it's good.
It's interesting enough, they actually planned on calling it Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the film, and they actually thought about calling it that.
No,
my question, well, it isn't a memorable title. So whereas Blade Runner, it's memorable. It's not two short words banged together. And I just wonder if it would have been as popular if it hadn't been called that.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I'd say no, because Blade Runner is it's a good name, and it's short, it's sweet. I think Gaz liked it so much he's left the call.
Well, actually, I thought at first, same as last time when he froze last week. I thought, he's giving me a nasty look here because I've said I don't like Blade Runner. I'm upsetting, but no, he just frozen, so it's okay. It's okay. Well, I tell you what, then I'll jump in one of my favorite, and interesting enough, one thing that was prevalent during the 1980s. Following on from the 1970s was really sort of decent horror. He's back. Really, really decent horror movies made in the 1980s as well. There's some absolute humdingers. And one of my favorite, not just one of my favorite horrors, one of my favorite films, American Werewolf in London, is a film made in the 1980s. And I'm not going to do my Brian Glover story tonight.
No, go on.
No,
because it's on my list as well, and I thought, I'll mention it, and I'll tee Adam up for his Brian Glover story.
I've done it twice on the podcast now. I don't want to milk it too much.
Stick to the roads.
Yeah, beware the moon, then murder it. Great film. Featuring a young Rick Mayall as well. You made me miss. I've never missed that board in my life. Anyway, that wasn't Rick Mayall who said that, but honestly, that is one of the best films. And one of the things I like about movies that were made in the 1980s is that lack of CGI. That transformation scene when he turns into a werewolf for the first time, and, his nose prolongs, and he's got the prosthetics in his feet and his arms, and he's all changing over, and the hair starts growing. It's phenomenal. Yes, you can sort of tell that parts of it are done on a dummy, but it's the ingenuity of it.
It's the jaw for me, so you can see the limbs and stuff, but it's the jaw, and you're like, at the time you're like, what? Like literally, like, how have they done that? Obviously now it's CGI, but literally at the time it's like, like the jaw, and you're thinking, how was that? How do they even do that?
Yeah, it's incredible.
It was.
Even to this day, it still blows me away when I watch that film.
No, that made my list. 81, that was, wasn't it? So yeah, that was that for me. And there's a couple of other notable, I suppose, horror films. So Friday the 13th was in the 80s, but that didn't make my list. But that's a notable absence as such.
That's on my list.
Yeah.
I tell you,
I used to watch Channel 4. I was obviously quite young in the 80s, but when you watch Channel 4 used to do like a horror special, didn't they? From like 11 onwards till 4 in the morning or something like that. So I used to stay up like really late just for school. And I used to watch like Friday the 13th films. I've actually only got a couple of horror films written down, and one of them was the Day of the Dead somewhere on this. Because George Romero is like,
Genius.
you talk about special effects, and I love his stuff. I don't know whether it's comical or what, but yeah, it's really graphic and good.
I think, interesting enough, and I could be wrong in this, so tweak me if I am, but Tom Savini, who did all the special effects on the likes of the Friday the 13th films, also worked with George Romero. I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did a lot of the special effects on those movies as well. But yeah, you say Friday the 13th, it wasn't just one. How many of those films were made in the 80s?
I think it was like 4 or 5.
8.
I was going to say
1 through 8 were made in the were made at that time scale, and that is from the first one up to Jason Takes Manhattan.
Wow. We should have got Sid on talking about, because Sid loves his.
Oh my god!
His Friday the 13th. You know, he proper loves it, didn't he? So we should have got him on talking about that, really. But because he literally would have waxed lyrical. He'd have probably said, you know, well, number 1 this happened, and then number 2 this happened, and then number 3 it literally could have gone through like pretty much the whole lot. But yeah, that was decent. I mean, the Thing. So that was an 80s film. You know, and again, it didn't make my list, but it was a notable. A notable mention, honorary mention, but it didn't get there. But that was decent. You know, very, very good film.
It was, and made my list, dude. I love that film, and again, it's another one where these films, horror films nowadays, there's always, if you make a modern day film, at some point somebody will look at their phone and say, "Oh, I've got no signal," because they have to do that. Because in this day and age, I'll just phone somebody and tell them what's going on. Back then. Because old goats like us, when can remember pre-mobile phone times, you didn't. So they had that isolation out on the ice, and I think that's great. Another film from the 80s, I love being a horror film, The Entity, which is a true story. Apparently, and that is a woman who was attacked by some bizarre entity living in her house, and is allegedly a true story. And I think that's a very good, very well made film. Gets a little bit far-fetched at the end when they're trying to trap it in some kind of electric grid, but they've got to add something. They've got to embellish it a little bit for the movie, haven't they?
I'm trying to just have a look, see if there's anything. There isn't another. Is it horror? I don't think it's horror. You see, I got Lost Boys, which isn't. I don't think it would be classed as a horror film. I don't know. It's quite dark, and obviously it's vampires and stuff. So, but that again, actually, Sid should have probably spoken about that, because that was one of his favourite films as well. And the soundtrack to that is proper decent. Sid used to listen to that all the time. And strangely enough, I mentioned Stand By Me, and then I mentioned Lost Boys, and they both have Kiefer Sutherland, and they both have Corey Feldman. So whether I'm a Kiefer Sutherland, Corey Feldman fan, I don't know. But and interestingly, there's another film with, I think, Corey Feldman in it, which I might get to in a minute.
I've got a funny feeling I know what that one is. I'm
pretty sure.
But you've missed out on another horror franchise as well, Nightmare on Elm Street. That began life in the 90s. Robert Englund in that, truly creepy character. One of those films that should never ever have been remade, because that was all about Robert Englund and the character that he portrayed in that.
That series. Sorry, go on, Andy.
No, carry on.
Yeah, I'm just saying that film was possibly one of the first films that shit me up. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'd watch it, I'd be like. And when you look back now, you think, oh my God, it's stupid, and actually I sort of now much prefer the sort of almost the occult type films that you think, could that be true? Could that not be true? As opposed to a proper hacker slasher sort of film. But back in the day, oh man.
Do you know where Wes Craven got that idea from, though?
No.
Well, he got the story from a chap who came to America from Cambodia, who was fleeing, I think it was the Civil War there, and was having terrible nightmares about the place. He was a refugee, and he came to the States, and he was staying with a family and was having absolutely horrific nightmares, to the point in which he passed away in his sleep. And that is the story, the principle, which gave Wes Craven the idea of making the film Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wow.
Yeah, so it might obviously it's a little bit more far fetched, obviously,
Yeah.
but yeah, it has its roots in a true story, which is fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, no, that is cool.
Yeah, and I tell you another horror film, dude, that you missed because I do love a good horror. Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, both made in the 80s.
You see, when I was sort of thinking of the films, I thought it is decent, but I knew you'd mention it, so I thought I won't because it didn't make my list. But I knew you'd mention it because you love those films. I love
those films, and I love Bruce Campbell. I love Sam Raimi, Robert Tapert, the people that are involved in making those films. Also from Detroit, Michigan, Andy, from your Lions team from up there, big Lions fans. I think a couple of them. Yeah, great films. And Evil Dead was made on such a small budget. I actually think, when I was reading the budget earlier, I think it said it was like 200,000 to 300,000. I don't think it was. I actually think it was much nearer 50,000 than it was actually made on. It might have been promoted a little bit after that when the bigger picture companies picked it up. But yeah, it was made for around about 50,000 and it's turned over millions to this day. Absolutely millions, and that is one of the big success stories from the 80s. That film.
Yeah, it would have got an honourable mention, but I knew you were going to talk about it because I know you love those films, so I thought I'll leave that to Ad. Go on then, Andy. What would be one on your sort of list then?
Well, just to interject on the whole horror film, I'm not a horror film fan, but I like like Friday the 13th. Like I watched them in another era, like Candyman and stuff like that. But one thing I do notice is the different back then, the horror films, is more about suspense and building up to summer. Whereas now it's all about jump scares, I find.
Yeah.
Like you watch some films now, it's just about someone jumping out at you, and it's like that's not scary. It just makes you jump.
That's
like,
it, yeah.
Knowing something's there but not seeing it, or what I mean, and having that undertone of like something's lurking there. That's
it's the boogeyman, isn't it?
It is exactly, yeah.
That boogeyman is going to get you. Whereas I think probably nowadays we get that on the nightly news. We got to fix there, don't we? The stories.
I do think that they're almost after that shock value. Whereas years gone by, it was there was like an undercurrent of intense, if you know what I mean. It was, and I quite like that. And I quite like that build up, and as you said, that undercurrent of it is a suspense. It's like it's not that. Oh yeah,
Well, Friday the 13th was definitely intense because there was always somebody camping.
He's here all week.
Thank you very much.
Was that the one where he first wore the hockey mask?
That was number 3 when he worked.
Number 3 with it.
Yeah.
And actually, I tell you what, dude, that's another Detroit reference. It was a Detroit Red Wings hockey mask that he wears. So number 3, he takes it off like there's this real goofball character, and I forget his name now, but he wears it and he takes it along to scare some of the cooler kids who he's staying with, and that's where he first takes the mask on, and obviously then that stayed.
Yeah, which is pretty cool because you associate it with being. That's just him. It's like 1, 2. You would associate that mask being.
Yeah.
That's Friday 13th.
Number 1, it wasn't even Jason Voorhees. It was his mother.
No, it was his mother. Yeah.
Voorhees, I think it was. Betsy Palmer played her. And then in number 2, he was a child in the first one. In number 2, he wore a bag over his head and just looked out through the one eye. And it was the third one that he started wearing the hockey mask.
There's a scene it must be the third one. Then he's walking down the street and there's some like couple of lads there with like the boom boxes on the shoulder, and he just like lifts it off and puts it back down again, but the camera never sees it. It's like behind him. That always sticks out in my head. And then that guy, I can't remember if he just screams and runs off or what, but it's like you don't know what he looks like. It's like, oh, come on, turn around.
That might be number 8, that one, I think.
Was it number 8?
Yeah, it might be with the boombox. Yeah, I think that might be Jason Takes Man Out. I could be wrong. Tweet me if I am.
I don't know the franchise that in that much depth, but there was one, was it 6 or 7, was there some sort of karate kid thing that had a dig at him and he was like kicking him all over the top of this building? So what was that one? And I can't.
That was number 5.
There you go, you see.
And interesting enough, again, Jason wasn't the bad guy in that. It was the cop or the ambulance guy. Sorry, he dressed up as him, somehow gained superhuman powers while he was doing it. But yeah, that was number 5. But yeah, interesting enough, when you're talking about your pal Corey Feldman, in 5, he plays the elder version of Corey Feldman's character from number 4.
Oh, really?
Wow. Who, and he actually kills Jason. He puts him in the ground.
Yes. Yeah, does he? How did he do that? I'm trying to think.
Well, he hacks him up with a knife. He shaves his head and confuses him to make him think, that he is sort of he sympathizes with him, and then Jason gets confused. And while he's confused, he goes in with that machete.
Wow. There you go. So basically, we're rocking the Corey Feldman films, are we, in the 80s?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Yeah. No Kevin Spacey tonight.
No, absolutely. Hold on. No, Kevin Spacey. I was just having a look. No, definitely not. Definitely not.
You've read the news since then. And you've gone, take him off. I can't think of any. I've got one film down there, but I'm sure you're going to mention it later on. Begin with a G.
Yes. That's That's the next one that I had with Corey Feldman in it, along with obviously a couple of the really well-known actors and stuff that went on to do, I say, bigger and better things, but I'm not sure you can get much better than the film that we all three was probably going to mention.
Wow. Yeah, the Goonies, I presume, is the one we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You guys. Chestercott pot stuff, just brilliant, just
genius.
It's weird because I watched it, I loved it, and we'll watch it again and love it again, love it again, love it again. But Jenny, my wife, and my 2 daughters watched it. One of my daughters lasted about 15 minutes and this is rubbish, and then went left, and I made Jenny sit and watch the whole thing. She was like, that's crap. And I was like, really? Seriously?
Kim hates it as well.
Did you not get that?
What are you missing?
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a great film.
It is a brilliant.
Dirty Dancing's on their list, though, isn't it? So
I hate that film. But again, I've been forced to watch that.
Nobody puts Baby in the corner. Yeah. Okay, Patrick, do one.
Get back to Roadhouse.
Get back to Roadhouse, because that's a way better film.
I always think of Family Guy from Roadhouse. Yeah. Going back to the Goonies, you just remind me then that Jurassic Park, the chubby guy in it, he wears like jackets that they all wear in the film. So he's wearing like a Hawaiian shirt in one scene. Another scene, he's got a yellow jacket on. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Deadpool 2 references it as well, obviously, because Josh Brolin's in it.
Yeah.
I think Deadpool calls him One Eye Willie within in that film.
Wow, brilliant.
I think he wears the same sort of like floral shirt in one scene where he's got no legs, or he's got baby legs. That's a spoiler for you. Yeah.
I've not seen that one yet.
Yeah, One Eye Willie. Yeah, Jesus. It is. It's brilliant.
Funnily enough, though, I rewatched it probably last year before, and I felt like it was such a shorter film than I remember.
Yeah.
Like when I watched it as a kid, I was like, "Oh, this is like 5 hours." It's like no, it's about an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was the booby trap. That's right, a booby trap. Like he's just like, he's got the thing that flies out. It's just brilliant. But what I was reading a little bit about the Goonies, and when they first, basically when they go down the water slide, and then they sort of they come out. That was a genuine slide. I think they mocked it up. It must have been one of the sort of American water parks, and it was a genuine sort of theme park. So they got them to ride that and then splash down. But when they did that, obviously they then swim to the side, and then they look at this massive, great big sort of stage with the mock-up of the boat and the cave and all that sort of stuff. And was it Richard Donner? Did he produce it? Was it? I can't think who it was. Was it? Anyway, so and what they said is basically they kept that scene, and none of the cast saw that sound stage, whatever you want to call it, prior. So literally, like as they were reading their lines, they saw it, and the look on their faces was like genuine, like wow. They were looking at the boat and like genuinely they were like, oh my god, sort of thing, because they got this massive great thing mocked up. It's brilliant.
That wasn't the story I thought you were going to share, actually. Because if
Oh,
you
go
watch that, there's the bit when they come down the water slide. There's an extra person that comes down,
Oh
which is
no!
why I thought you were mentioning Richard Donner, because I'm sure it's him. If you if you watch that film, there's just an extra random person that comes down, and you just thought, actually, I want to be involved in this. I'm not missing out.
Is that
yeah, and he comes down. Yeah, he comes down. I'm sure it's Richard Donner. Could be wrong. If Sid was here, he'd correct me.
If Sid was here, he definitely would correct you. But no, literally, when they're in the water, and then the first time they saw it was when they were filming the scene. So and like the look of genuine, like, oh my God, was actually genuine because they hadn't seen it before. So that's just a little bit of sort of, a little bit trivia as such. But yeah, that's an all-time classic, brilliant film. There was another one that didn't make my list, and I sort of don't know why, but it's another one beginning with G, and that was Ghostbusters, because that was an 80s.
What
and
the hell?
That
It's on my list.
You see, it is a brilliant film, and now I'm looking at it thinking, that really should go on my list. That really should go on my list.
Should.
I
mean, that
in fact, you know what?
Yeah, that'd be one of the ones I would have been holding back. You know, what my two favorite films of the 80s. That would be one of them. That would be one of them. I love that film.
Do you not like the new remake? Or?
No, I don't.
It was rubbish.
No, in all fairness, as a standalone film, again, no need to remake it. It's okay. I hated the idea that it had been remade. Completely pointless, because the first one, in my eyes, is perfect. There's nothing you could change about that film to improve it. The fact that the special effects are a little bit cheesy and Slimer, you sort of tally been imposed over the top onto the...
on top, yeah.
Yeah, you can tell, but... That film is excellent. Yes, absolute travesty that film was made. The film itself is okay. It's tolerable. It's from everything I've heard, it's better than Coming to America too. But yeah.
Now Coming to America, that was an 80s film. The original was 80s thing.
It was, yeah. We watched that the other night.
No, the Ghostbusters, Do Re Egon. You know, it's just and the thing is, one of the scene for me, there's loads. Obviously, don't cross the streams and all that, but it was just they're like, clear your mind. Don't think of anything. Obviously, you know what you think of is going to come back, and all of a sudden you just see this like 100-foot marshmallow man, whoever, pounding through the streets, and it cuts to him and he goes, "You just popped in there," or whatever it is. That is literally that's what he thought was like basically this big Stay Puft guy sort of thing. Just brilliant. Yeah, I did. I want to know why it didn't make my list. I'm just having a look now. Well,
should be ashamed of yourself there, dude.
That cast as well, like Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis. Such each one of them is good on their own, but then all together.
Well, Sigourney Weaver was it? Was she
Sigourney Weaver's
gatekeeper or she? No, she was.
Was she the receptionist? Or?
Was she?
She was the gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper, and Rick Moranis
was the key master or something.
I can't remember, but she was a gatekeeper or something, I think.
Yeah, she played the client. She played one of the clients who got possessed by
Zord. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I've got 10 films here, and I'm thinking Ghostbusters really should be on there. You're going to be horrified at one of the ones that I've got on mine, by the way, but because you'll go, really?
Is it Top Gun?
It is Top Gun, yeah.
It's awful. People go on it like it's like the best thing since sliced bread, and it's like I'd rather watch the Ghostbuster remake.
Whoa, steady on.
It's too cheesy. There's cheese,
but that's the 80s. And then there's Top Gun. Brilliant. There's cheese, and then there's Top Gun cheese.
It's too much. It's like I agree with that. It's too much cheese. It's just cheese from start to finish. Tiddy and Shine, I love this film. I tell you what, they when they were talking about like Top Gun 2, which is obviously been delayed by 12 months thanks to COVID. That's the best thing that COVID's ever done. Putting that film back by 12 months.
Can't wait to watch that.
I tell you what, I'd take another lockdown to avoid it. And they were proper excited. You know, they dedicated, I reckon, a full 15 minutes in their podcast just talking about how excited they were to watch that film. It's like,
mate, honestly, I love that film. I love Top Gun. I genuinely, and the soundtrack is mint as well, by the way.
It really isn't.
So going back to proper films, to throw in a different one, Die Hard, I think.
Die Hard,
Dude,
yeah.
that was on my notables. So I've got my main list, and then I know I've said there's a few notables, but that was one of my 3 notables. Because it's a good Christmas film, though, yeah.
It's set at Christmas. Do you know? And for me, that's enough. That's enough.
It's a Christmas film, isn't it? Die Hard.
That's it. I get it every Christmas.
It's brilliant. Again, Jenny was like, "I hate Bruce Willis. It's rubbish." How can Die Hard be rubbish? It's amazing.
I think Rickman makes it for me. That film.
Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman's brilliant, though. Yeah, absolutely brilliant actor. Absolutely brilliant. He was, it's not an 80s film, but if you ever watch the film Dogma, he's brilliant in that. Absolutely brilliant. I stumped you. It's Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh no, not Keanu Reeves. What was the one?
No. It's Jay and Silent Bob. Kevin Smith.
Okay.
Chris Rock's in it. Yeah, good film. Good film. Watch that one. Yeah. I tell you what, dude. It's 10 times better than Top Gun.
But was it made in the 80s?
I don't think so. No, it's not.
Doesn't count then, does it?
No, it doesn't count. Doesn't count. We'll edit it out.
Just having a look at
1999, by the way.
Was it 1999? There you go.
Well, oh no, it wasn't. Actually, I had a proper mental lapse. And so my next one, really, I was going to look at, and we sort of mentioned all the Corey Feldman ones and all that sort of stuff. So American Wolf in London, Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes.
Absolutely, just I'm going deep. I mean, Axel F. You just now that is iconic as well. But the whole film is just brilliant.
That's my favourite Eddie Murphy film. That one.
It's just class.
Yeah, my favourite Eddie Murphy film. I think he's brilliant in that. Absolutely brilliant. Is it Judge Reinhold's in it as well?
Yeah, Judge Reinhold's in it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it is. It's brilliant. And doesn't he shove a banana in the tailpipe of a car or whatever? And he's like creeping around. And I'm going deep undercover. I'm going so deep you won't even recognise me. I'm going deep. Just brilliant. Just genius film.
I haven't watched that one in a while. I didn't even add it to my list. I forgot about that one.
Honestly, Beverly Hills Cop, just class.
It's not the best cop movie though of the 1980s.
Oh, go on. Where are you going with this now?
Frank Drebin. Yeah, the Naked Gun. Come on now. Our good friend the Juice, O.J. Simpson, in it as well. That is a great film. Taken from the TV series, actually, which we didn't even mention, Police Squad last week.
Yeah, I was going to say Police Squad.
Yeah, and taken from the files of Police Squad, which is one of the best TV series.
The funniest things in that, there was, the scene where, was it Police Squad, was it Naked Gun, I can't remember, was it, and they literally were shooting at each other, and then the camera pans out, and they're at 2 yards apart, whatever it is. Literally, you expect them to be like far ends of the alley, and they're literally like right next to each other, just popping out shooting.
I think it was in both. They did like to reuse their gags. God bless them.
It was genius. But why do we not think of Police Squad?
It's the same character and everything they did as well, wasn't it? But I was going to say, wasn't that like a Saturday Night Live sketch or something like that? Or
it
might and then it became that TV show, and then it became the films. Can't remember.
A lot of great films, not just from the 80s, but a lot of great films started life as sketches on Saturday Night Live. Another one, you're forcing to mention me earlier again, because it would have been the top 3 now I'm talking about, that started life as a Saturday Night Live sketch. The Blues Brothers. Dan Aykroyd again.
Jim Belushi,
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Was it Jim? James? I've said Jim. I think I've got a feeling it was John.
James.
I always get confused. I'm getting confused because they were brothers, weren't they? But yeah, I love that film. Just from start to finish. Set in Chicago, Illinois as well, Gazza, for you.
Go Bears.
Wasn't blown away by it, to be honest. I think I watched it a couple of years back. I don't know if it was that one or the one that came out a bit later. But
yeah, there was that was I forget the guy's name, but obviously Dan Aykroyd and another chap. But was it Blues Brothers 2000? Yeah, obviously it was a little bit later, as you can tell by the title of the film. But no, I love the original. It's just got so much character, and just some of the cameos that are in that film as well. Yeah. There's the music. If you want to talk about an 80s film with a great soundtrack, don't bother with Top Gun. Blues Brothers.
Dude, I've just thought of a film, and I don't know whether it is 80s. I want to say it is, and it literally, you just mentioned there about an ensemble cast and stuff. Cannonball Run.
Cannonball Run is the 1980s, and I think Cannonball Run 2 was.
Yeah.
But
Now, when you talk about an ensemble
81.
cast and 81,
yeah. It's on my list. Cannonball Run is. I thought
Is it?
Yeah,
Really?
100%. I love Burton Leon Reynolds. I think that guy is. If I could be anyone else, I want to grow a mustache. Kim will let me grow a mustache just so I can be like Bert.
She won't notice. It's fine.
It's true. She wouldn't notice. But
But,
love
just
Burton.
These Raise Me Bleeds. You know what I mean? It's just and then you go, was it Marty Feldman? He literally opens up the side of the ambulance door and he's like got this big syringe and stuff. And you're just like, hey, what?
I don't think it is Marty Feldman, dude. It's somebody else, but it's very similar. I don't think it's Marty
Feldman.
It's never on TV though, is it? Cannonball.
I have that in my DVD collection. I have to say, I got rid of a lot of them. Music Magpie, an awful lot of films, but that one I could not part with. Or number two, number three, Cannonball Run Fever is to be avoided. But the first two are brilliant. Yeah, don't bother.
Smoking the Bandit Ride again, snuck in.
No. See,
no. You are a Bert fan, but
yeah,
not sure.
See, that keeps popping up on TV. So I can watch Smoking the Bandit 1 and 2.
Oh, that was 77, wasn't it? Smoking
the
Bandit, so yeah. But
Cannonball Run, I haven't watched that for years because it's just never on TV.
It is such a good film, and that literally just came to me there, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like, please be 80s, and it was. So I'm going to throw one out there, and Ad, I don't know whether it was on your list, but I know you like the film, and one of our sort of listeners, Bill, sort of likes it. So Young Guns.
Oh, that was in my list of the top.
Oh, was it?
that again?
Oh, sorry, Andy.
That is the third one of the three of my.
Really, was it? Because that's on my list as well.
Ghostbusters,
brilliant.
Yeah, Blues Brothers and Young Guns. Those for me the best films made in that era.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
Genius, great story. It's the story.
Good soundtrack.
Yeah, good soundtrack. Yeah, well, it was the second one's probably better, more famous for having the quality soundtrack in it with John Bon Jovi doing Blazing Ball.
Yeah.
Well, fairly close to the what actually happened. Obviously, it bigs it up a little bit just for the sake of the movies and some certain things like Doc Scurlock wasn't massively involved. That legendary shot where he leans out the window and shoots it wasn't Billy the Kid. It was actually Doc Scurlock's dad sat on a roof like about 250 yards away. Took a pot shot, took out what's his name? I was going to say Scottie Pippen, but he's the basketball player.
He was the Chicago Bulls. Yeah, he was. No, he was class.
Yeah, he was, yeah. But I'm pretty sure it wasn't him in the film.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't him in the film.
But no, that is a great film. Again, with a good cast. Emilio Estevez as Billy the Kid, Lou Diamond Phillips,
Pat Garrett and stuff. Was it? That's like.
Well, Pat Garrett was played.
Was he in there? Was he? Yeah, who was the guy that played him? Now
in the first one, it was John Wayne's son, Patrick Wayne.
Right.
In the second one, it was the guy who played Gil Grissom in CSI. Can't remember. So he played him. Yeah. He had a bigger role in that one. Literally in the first one, he just turns up at the camp when Charlie Bowdery's getting married, and he's "You my friend, Bill?" "Yes, I am." Or whatever that the bit that he does with him. Great film, and just so well portrayed that Billy Bonney. So likable in that film, but you do know that he is a bit of a again. That's another one. Maybe that's another one we do. Serial killers was William H. Bonney or Henry McCarthy to give him his real name. Was he a serial killer? That's one for another day.
Isn't there some contention of who is Billy the Kid? Because they're still saying it might not be him as well, isn't it?
Well, he was a chap called Henry McCarthy. He was born in New York and travelled out west with his mum to sort of get away. Obviously as many people did in that time to try and make their money and stake a claim to a piece of land. And he's obviously, most people refer to him as William H. Bonney, but that is his most common pseudonym that he changed his name to when he was much younger because he'd been in trouble. But his real name is Henry McCarthy. However, the second one alludes to a chap by the name of Brushy Billy Roberts. Allegedly Pat Garrett never shot and killed him. He let him live and walk away if he promised to disappear down to Mexico, which he allegedly.
Allegedly.
And it's a very interesting story, actually. We should do a podcast on that later, actually, the Brushy Billy Roberts one, because it is a really interesting story, because there was a number of eyewitnesses that said, yes, this could very well be him. I've met Billy the Kid, and this guy sort of fits the bill. Yeah, you know, he had the physical scars where Billy the Kid would have had them from his various sort of gunfights and battles that he was involved in. So, yeah, those two films are both very, very interestingly told, and like I say, with the Brat Pack actors at the time, very famous films. I love them. Not as much as Bill loves them, you know, which is why we call him Bill, because his real name's Ian.
Yeah,
he loves Billy the Kid so much. That's why we call him Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill gives a shout out. Who's your favourite character in Young Guns, kid? Gives a shout out, Tweeters, Facebookers, whatever it may be. I'm pretty sure I can guess who it'll be. But
yeah, I think it's going to be Billy the Kid, dude.
But yeah, so that was one for me. So Young Guns, it was brilliant. And I say you got 1 and 2, but I say I lean towards probably the first one, but the second was decent as well. Really decent.
Second one actually squeaked into the. I think it's
into the 90s. Yeah, but yeah. Was it 90? Was it 90? 91?
90.
90. Yeah. Okay.
The cast in that was phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
Keith and his dad as well.
Was Donald Sutherland?
Donald he was the old guy at the start, wasn't he?
Is that right?
Because they walk up to someone in it.
No, I thought that's the case. But...
I thought that was Emilio Estevez dressed up. That was.
No, that would be. That'd be shout if it is, dude. I don't know.
Kiefer Sutherland was in it, and it was. There was a few extra characters added in that one.
Christian Slater, who was a brilliant 80s actor,
and John Bon Jovi,
and Viggo Mortensen.
Yes,
that surprised me.
Yeah. Viggo Mortensen was in it.
But was it Bon Jovi? Was there a guy that gets shot and then he basically falls back or whatever? Is that famous? And then that's Bon Jovi, John Bon Jovi apparently. But and you sort of try and pause it like, is that him really? So apparently it was, but you can't tell.
Uncredited.
Was he uncredited?
Yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah, that was Andy. Go on, give us what's another one on your list? Then have you got?
As we're on like the final thing, I'll just throw in a few the family sort of films. Let me list off a quick Bill and Ted.
Yeah, that's on my notables. Yeah. That was on my notables. Yeah,
great classic film. Labyrinth.
Yes, that was.
I was never a fan of
David Bowie. David Bowie he did that thing with the orbs and stuff in his hand, didn't he? Yeah.
I'll tell you a better film with David Bowie made in the 1980s. Into the Night. Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Pfeiffer, Dan Aykroyd. Watch that one.
Yeah,
it's a little bit more obscure. It's not a particularly famous film, but have a route if you. I don't know whether it's streamed on any of the channels. If not, if you know me and you want to borrow it on DVD, drop me a message. I'll lend it to you. But you're gonna have to return it because I love that film and it's not common seeing.
Labyrinth. What was the other one with? Was it Flight of the Navigator or something? The kid gets he finds a UFO and he gets into it and he learns how to fly and stuff. And then there was is that Flight of the Navigator? See, that as a kid film was okay. What was the one? Was it Never Ending Story? Was that 80s?
Yeah.
With that big bloody flying bloody whatever it was.
Was it Lamar did the soundtrack to that one? I bet you bloody love that one as well.
That'll be next week in your 80s music. That'll be.
Was it the kid called Atreyu who finds a book and he starts reading it and he's. I don't know if he's the kid or the little weird thing in the story called Atreyu, but yeah, it's good. I've also got on there Little Shop of Horrors.
And Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis, yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit as well.
There was something about that rabbit in that film, wasn't there? Well, his wife, anyway, more to the
wife, Jessica.
It's just again, we're going back to what we talked about last week with the female characters in
She-Ra.
Yeah.
No, not She-Ra. The cats, Thundercats.
Thundercats, yeah, She-Ra, yeah.
Sexy cartoons.
Overly sexualized.
Yeah, that's not right, is it?
No, I mean, I say family ones most of mine. Yeah. Actually, there's a couple that haven't been mentioned at all, or pretty much other than that, everyone of mine's been mentioned. One I am going to mention, so The Shining, love that film, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, classic.
Just classic film. Red Rum, red. You know, just brilliant. The twins and stuff, and just on the trikes and just
those twins are genuinely creepy.
Genuinely
creepy.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stories about them.
If they were riding down, you know, if you were in a hotel and you saw them riding down the corridor, you'd be like, excuse me? Oh, what? What's going on here?
I just clothesline them, just run between them. Like
The other thing that was big in the 80s, wasn't it, the wrestling?
Yeah. But no, so The Shining, and obviously you got Here's Johnny, you know, just brilliant. Sort of seeing Overlook Hotel, Stephen King book, obviously. I mean, I read a lot of Stephen King, sort of growing up and stuff. And that obviously that was taken from one of his books, but it's funny because when you picture certain characters in a book and then they get portrayed on a film, you have an idea about what they should look like from reading the book, and when it's not necessarily when they're portrayed on film as being somebody different, you're like, really? Well, you know, I thought that might be somebody else, but to me, he just is perfect for that character.
Did you enjoy the book? I bored the pants off me, the book.
I quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed it, but having said that, like I say, I was a big Stephen King fan, so
didn't enjoy it.
And like, I even made it all the way through the Tommy Knockers book, which is horrendous, but I actually managed to read it all the way through. Do you know what I mean? And The Stand, by the way, is Stephen King's best piece of work. Literally, it is just a fantastic book. But that might be another podcast. But yeah, so yeah, The Shining for me got onto my list because it's a brilliant film.
I just noticed I've missed off three fairly big films.
There's a lot of massive films we missed out.
Well, these ones I've got on the list though.
Go for it.
Big.
Okay, yeah. Beetlejuice again, yeah.
I love that film.
What's his name?
Jack Nicholson. Was it
No,
Jack?
no. It's the guy who played Batman.
Keaton.
What's his name?
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, yeah. Gotta give that guy a shout out. He's from Pittsburgh. Detroit and Chicago got a mention. Gotta give Pittsburgh a mention.
And Back to the Future as well.
Well, this is what I thought. At some point, you know, Sid's listening to this podcast, and I'm hearing a dummy being spat out because we talked about the 80s film. We're right towards the end, and now Andy throws in one of the best films made in that time, Back to the Future, and Back to the Future 2 also made in the 1980s, which is also an absolute gem.
You might miss the episode, so we can just get him on and we'll talk about these.
Yeah, I tell you what, if we got Sid on to talk about Back to the Future and Goonies, we wouldn't get a word in edgewise. He loves those films. Love those films.
Literally, Back to the Future, Goonies, Friday the 13th. Yeah. That's Sid's our podcast.
That's it, yeah. And, you know, and if we're going to upset Craig, we'll probably mention Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi as well, with two films that were made in the 80s. First film I ever saw at the cinema in the 80s was Empire Strikes Back.
Seriously, how can we be like an hour in or whatever and not mention that?
We've not mentioned Indiana Jones. Not mentioned
that's on my list as well.
Yeah, you know Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom.
I looked at that and thought, ooh, yeah, maybe.
Great films.
I've got a film on this list that you guys might appreciate after that Dungeons and Dragons episode or role playing game. Revenge of the Nerds.
Not sure what you're trying to say there, Andy.
I thought you were going to say Conan the Barbarian or something.
I've got that on the list as well.
You haven't? Have you got that on your list?
I've got that. I've got The Running Man, Terminator.
Yeah.
I was about to say, dude, you wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger at your table, and you leave it to now to mention these films, he wouldn't turn up.
Terminator was on my mentions.
Terminator's on mine as well. I'll tell you what.
Terminator is. I mean, the original. And I know they did a couple. Terminator 2 it was very good and stuff, but like the original Terminator back in the day was like. And again, you talked about the CGI and stuff, but when the first time that you saw some of his face peel off, sort of thing.
You've muted yourself.
You were like, you were like, wow, that's like, just like, you know, you got half his face and half the cyborg. You're like,
yeah. And it's like really budget, was it? And it was filmed in was it 6 months or 9 months?
Brilliant.
All shot at night as well.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I mentioned two more films from.
I've got
Rocky 3 and Rocky 4. We've not mentioned.
You see, I hated Rocky 3. Rocky 4 was amazing.
Is the third one with Dolph Lundgren or Mr.
Fourth
T?
one is
4 was Dolph Lundgren. 3 was Mr. T.
And
Clubber Lang
and Hulk Hogan.
Thunder lips.
What you gonna do, brother?
See, three was horrendous. I hated that film.
Not number
1
5.
and 2 were brilliant. 4 was brilliant. 5.
5 was awful. Awful.
Was that with Tommy Morrison? When it was that 5? Was it?
Yeah, hate it. Hate it.
There's a story about Tommy, isn't there? Like, did you hear about one of his final fights where obviously he's like his fists were like cinder blocks, weren't they? Like just kill people. And then he fought some guy who they removed some of his padding from his gloves,
right.
And he got his ass like whooped, and I don't think he could fight after that, could he? I don't know if it's his final fight, but one off.
Well, I tell you what, you're talking about boxing, and you've got 1980 Raging Bull. I mean, that is like literally, and I can't believe we haven't really mentioned De Niro, Pacino films and stuff, but obviously Raging
Scarface
Bull.
on the list.
Yeah, Scarface.
Yeah. Love that film.
Long go all day on this list.
Yeah, I tell you what.
Dude, we seriously need to do like an 80s.
This is going to be a Kevin
definitely
Spacey special, isn't it? Because we've not mentioned Police Academy.
Oh, it's not on the list, but they're classics.
I'm gonna throw one out there, and you might not appreciate this just because of one of the actors that's in there, but I'm gonna throw out Rain Man, because Rain Man is brilliant. And I know
I've got nothing.
I know Tom Cruise is in it.
I've got nothing against Tom Cruise. It's just
Rain Man is Charlie Bear, and it's the way that Tom Cruise thinks that he can sort of manipulate Dustin Hoffman, and he obviously thinks that he can take advantage of his sort of autism, and then towards the end of the film he then warms to him, and it's that whole relationship thing, and it's brilliant. I love the film. It's an incredible film. So that was the last one really of all of the ones that I was going to throw out there, because I do enjoy that film. It is a classic.
So we're on the hour mark. Do we want to end on Rain Man?
No, throw another one out there. We don't, because you can't end on like films of the 80s, Rain Man. You have to have another absolute blockbuster. So Andy or Adam, who's got
Predator.
a blockbuster?
Big Trouble in Little China.
Kurt Russell, that's an amazing film, dude.
Yeah. I've got Escape from New York on the list as well.
Not as good. It was okay.
Good though.
Big Trouble in Little China. That's a brilliant film.
Spaceballs as well.
And They Live. We've not mentioned that. Roddy Piper's finest. Put on the sunglasses.
You say that. Are we going to seriously? We're not going to end on that, are we?
What about Gremlins? We're not mentioning Gremlins.
Yeah, you see.
Yeah.
I did look at that. And again, but was Superman, was that 80s?
Probably, yeah. And National Lampoon's Vacation, European Vacation,
Yes.
and Christmas Vacation.
Bigfoot and the Hendersons, was that 80s? You know what I mean? It's just like some absolute classic films going on here. You know what I mean? It is. Go on, Andy. You're dying to throw it out. Go on. What's the film we're going to end on? Go on. You must have one more.
Tim Burton's Batman.
Actually, yeah. And that's a pretty decent shout, to be fair.
I prefer Batman Returns.
Do you?
Oh, is it Schumacher? What was his name? Who was the director of that one?
I don't know. I just had Michelle Pfeiffer in a catsuit. It's good enough for me.
Yeah. Well, so the first one was... Who was the first one that Batman? And then Michael Keaton, was it?
Michael Keaton, wasn't he, about them?
Yeah.
Yeah. He did. Tim Burton's one was Keaton.
Yeah.
With Jack Nicholson in it. Kim Basinger.
Mm-hmm.
So let's end it there now, because we're out, Mark.
Yeah.
So, Gaz, before you freeze, do you want to say anything?
Before, already afterwards. No, honestly, we could have spoken for 2.5, 3 hours on this, I suppose, because next time we do an 80s movies, we have to get Sid on. So, Sid, I apologise, but we will get you on for the next one. And then, I loved it. Really enjoyed reminiscing. Look forward to the sequel. Enjoyed it. Over and out.
Dad?
I'm going to leave you with a quote from a film released the day after my brother's 10th birthday in 1986 that hasn't been mentioned. And it's a film.
I know what you're going to say.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
You know what? You can't quite see that there, but it's on that list.
How has that not got mentioned? So
Life moves pretty. Yeah.
I don't interrupt your sign off. Don't interrupt mine. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Yeah, so there you go. I can't end on Ferris Bueller because I don't really like it, so I'm going to say Tron.
No, you're not going to try and top Ferris Bueller and Tron.
I'm going to veto that. We're not finishing on Tron.
Yeah, when this gets edited, dude, Tron won't be in here.
I mean, seriously, there's so many other films that you could have finished on. Other E.T. Like, seriously?
Yeah, we never mentioned E.T. or Lady Hawk.
E.T., not Tron. Footloose, Kevin Bacon, there's loads.
Do we mention Airplane?
Oh, we have now. So on that note, hope you've enjoyed the episode. We've got 80s music next, hopefully. So we'll see where that one goes. So yeah, good night. God bless. Watch Tron.